Okay. Uh,
When you go on, remember.
Is er nog geen zin? Nee. Mas wacht maar. Ik maar. Just register. Nee, is reg uitste. Ah, sy moet daar. Mooi.
Okay.
You just switch it on like that.
Well, so where the mic is now, it will be fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
So it's on the inside. Then.
Yeah, yeah. It's fine.
Okay. You go.
Change it. Run.
We have this presentation by GIPF. It's only those two. Yeah. Yeah, the discussions. Morning. Yeah, you can just.
For us, not for the only.
Coming on that time. Like agriculture, all of they're just coming that.
you, one of you who made the aircon, because the people are already complaining that it's too cold for them. Yeah. I don't know if you. Yeah.
I think
Just a minute, he just needs to change the lens.
Morning.
The same way you were talking.
Sorry, let me just check your network.
Let's put on the jacket.
Okay. Straight up. Okay.
Good morning. Good morning. Okay. So we can start?
Yeah, you can start.
Good morning, dear members. Good morning, dear members. First of all, let us apologize for starting a bit late. We were waiting for some of our members as we've invited all of our ministries around the auditorium. But I think we can start with our session for this morning. And those that are coming can just find us as we are going. My name is Siren Udapir. I'm the Senior Client Service Consultant of GIPF. And I'm here this morning to conduct the program for the member education session. Is this mic? And I would also like to start this morning off by welcoming you all for our member education session at the auditorium this morning. Allow me this morning to welcome our team from Alan Gray, Mr. Joseph Mukolwa, and Mr. Etienne Leroux, and the team that is accompanying them. They will also do a presentation this morning. Let's welcome them with a round of applause. And then our team from GIPF, Ms. Hilka Mbako, which is the Manager for Client Services, Mr. Amos Kambonde, which is the Manager for Marketing and Stakeholder Engagement. Let's give them a round of applause. And then I would like to welcome each and every one of you this morning to our member education session for this morning. Good morning, dear ladies and gentlemen. I am delighted to welcome you this morning. The GIPF remains committed to serve its stakeholders through a number of strategic. One such core activity is enhancing our member education. In light of this, the fund continues to prioritize member education sessions aimed at informing, educating, and sensitizing you, our members, about your benefits and the rules of the fund. As the forward-thinking fund, we have also embraced the use of new technologies and urge members to make use of our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and website pages for interactive sessions and to gain further information about activities taking place within the fund. We further wish to remind our members and beneficiaries that it's important to understand the rules of the fund and to know how they are applied. GIPF members are encouraged to make use of these platforms to gain more knowledge and to be briefed on the rights and responsibilities and to find out what benefits they are entitled to. Members seeking for specific updates related to the benefits are encouraged to either contact our offices nationwide or by calling in our contact center or to make use of our online member portal. Alternatively, members are also encouraged to use our email, which is info@gipf.com.za, or to inbox us via Facebook or Instagram for any inquiries. It is our duty to make sure that our members and the general public are informed and well educated about our role and the responsibilities of the fund. As such, GIPF will constantly be engaging you with the latest media releases, updates of the fund, updates of the fund's investments, member education sessions, roadshows, and the external quarterly GIPF newsletter, which you are all welcome to contribute towards any article. With this said, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to welcome you this morning to our member education session for this day. Feel comfortable, be at ease. If there's any questions, we are more than welcome to ask them at the end of each presentation. And I would like now to ask the Allen Gray team to come and do their first presentation. Mr. Joseph Mukwendwa and Etienne Leroux for their part to do. Let's give them a round of applause.
Morning. Good morning. Hello, can you hear me? Yes. I still need to use this. Oh, okay. Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the opportunity for us as Allen Gray to be speaking to you this morning on a very important topic, one that is really truly dear to our hearts. As introduced, my name is Joseph. I'm here with my colleagues, Etienne. He will be co-presenting with me. I also have two of my other colleagues, Kitty and Anne. You might be standing in this so that the guys can see you. So the team will actually be assisting us in responding to any questions that you may have. We are all from Allen Gray. Some of you may know Allen Gray is an investment management firm. We are one of the asset managers that are managing GIP members' funds, your money, your hard-earned money. So this is why it gives us great pleasure. And we're actually honored to be here speaking to you about financial literacy, which I truly believe is very, very important. And I'm sure most of you have experienced this. You might know a family member or a friend who's actually struggling to manage their financial resources, and they have to run to cash loans and the likes. And what happens then, it just perpetuates a situation of indebtedness. And that is something we are hoping can actually be overcome through financial literacy. All right. So to start off, financial literacy, the importance thereof cannot be overemphasized. And research has actually shown that 80% of people's problems are related, directly or indirectly related to money or managing money. And regardless of where you are in your career, at one point or another, you find yourself in situations where you need to be able to make financial decisions. And what financial literacy does, it equips you with the skill sets, with the tools, to be able to make those decisions for the best interest of yourself as well as your family. In essence, ultimately what financial literacy does is it allows you to mindfully manage your financial resources. So it's something that you are cognizant of, that you do deliberately, instead of money actually managing you. So what this slide shows is just a personal financial life cycle, and at each and every stage, it highlights some of the financial goals, some of which are needs and others are wants. And these financial goals are goals that are applicable to you and I. And they pertain to family, they pertain to our hobbies, they pertain to our lifestyle. And just looking around the room, and I heard earlier that we have people online, so I'm sure if the people online, they would typically fall within this part of the life cycle. And maybe on that note, ladies and gentlemen, if some of you do not have a copy of the handout, we printed some, so there are some at the bottom here, in case you might want to make some notes, please feel free to take one. All right, thank you very much. So essentially, if we look at this personal financial life cycle, so some of you in the crowd, at home, in the office watching this, may fall within the 20s to 30s part of the cycle, have established their career already, and perhaps found a partner and they're looking to get married. And some of the questions that you need to ask yourself if you want to get married: how am I going to finance that wedding? And I know in African culture, we love big weddings, hundreds and hundreds of people, but it can be quite an expensive endeavor. And if anything that we've learned from COVID is that there are always alternative ways to be able to achieve your goal. And I saw a lot of weddings that we had virtually, and we were quite successful in this regard. But these are some of the questions that we need to ask as well. Some of you may find yourselves in the bracket of 30, where you are looking to buy a house or are looking to start a business and are perhaps considering borrowing funds from a financial institution. So you need to ask yourself, what can I actually afford on a monthly basis? What can I actually pay to be able to own that house? Some of you might find yourselves in the 40s, where you are planning to have kids or actually already have kids. And this is actually where I am as well. So you have your kids, but can you afford to pay for your kids' schooling, for their clothing, or whatever the case may be? So one is to be able to think about all of that and ensure that you plan for it accordingly. Now, one of the things that keeps me awake at night, given that I'm here, is really around retirement planning. I want to be able to retire comfortably, with dignity. And the thing that I think about always is to say, have I saved enough to be able to enjoy the same comfort that I currently have when I ultimately retire? And those are questions that we need to be asking ourselves. And also another item that we need to be thinking of is around old age. What are we going to do when we grow old? I think typically in African culture, when you grow old, your family is going to be the one to take care of you. I know there are options around retirement accommodation, and these are things that we need to think about. But even if your family is going to be the one to look after you, are you putting aside enough resources to help them help you in terms of taking care of you? I mean, in your old age, there are so many ailments, and I think we should definitely assist our family members in that regard. And then lastly, in terms of the one thing that we don't talk about enough, the eventuality of death. And typically in African culture, we don't talk much about it. I think it's a taboo, if I can put it that way. But we need to have those conversations. Have we put in place measures to ensure that after we are gone, that the family members we leave behind are actually going to be taken care of? That the financial obligations that we leave behind are actually going to be taken care of? So it's very important that we have those conversations amongst ourselves, with our elders, our mothers, our fathers. I think it's really, really important to ensure that we set ourselves up properly. And maybe one thing that I can also ask of you, ladies and gentlemen, this morning, when you go back, whenever you pick from here, any lesson that you can pick through these conversations that we're having this morning on financial literacy, for those of you who have kids, start to have those conversations as early as possible. Try and instill those financial habits that are going to set them up for success, because they're going to need those skill sets to maneuver through. Okay. So you may be thinking, Joseph, thank you very much for all of what you said. So where do I start? It starts with a plan. And I think the old saying applies here. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So what we've set out here are a number of steps that you can actually take in terms of putting together your financial plan. It starts with assessing your current financial situation or position. How much money do you actually have at your disposal? What do you spend your money on? What are those expenses? So get an understanding of what they are. And then establish your financial goals, whatever they are. And you saw that in the previous slide. Concretize those financial goals. Budget accordingly. And I'll speak a bit about budgeting in the slides to come. And then consider independent financial advice. This is something that we do not actually take up as individuals. They play a vital role in being able to give us that advice that we need in terms of putting together our financial plan. Okay? Other factors to consider: insurance. Short-term, long-term insurance. Short-term particularly refers to insurance for your vehicle, for example. Long-term could be, life cover. You need to make sure that you make provision for that. Long, I mentioned earlier about buying a house. That could potentially be one of the financial goals that you currently have. But how much can you actually afford to pay on a monthly basis? And what should you pay down as a deposit? And there may be some of you that already have a bond. Perhaps within the resources that you have, you can afford to top up with a $500, $1,000 on top of what you're currently paying. And that will help you down the line to reduce the interest that is charged on the loan that you are getting from the bank. So those are very important aspects to think about. Retirement savings, is there a shortfall? Is there a surplus? You need to ask those questions. Investments, once you've established your financial goal, how well should your investments perform to ensure that you are able to meet that objective that you set out for yourself? And my colleague Etienne will speak quite a bit about investments after I've presented. And then estate planning, that we've also mentioned. Unfortunately, this is the reality, and I mentioned it right at the beginning. A lot of us, we spend a lot more than what we earn. The seesaw. We were kids once. So if it's heavier on the spend, definitely you are indebted here. So the idea is, as a start, get it to the point where it is at least balanced, whereby you are spending with means, you are spending more in line with what you're earning. But ultimately, what you actually want to do is to ensure that this tilts the other way around, that you actually earn a lot more than what you're currently spending. And what that will do is it will ensure that you have a surplus, and then that surplus can be utilized to be able to achieve those financial goals that you'd like to achieve. Okay? I think we cannot speak about this. When putting together your budget, it's important that you discern between needs versus wants. Needs are things that we cannot live without. This is food, nutrition, water, clothing, shelter. Those are needs, and they're very important. Wants are nice to have. Could be jewelry. Could be or whatever the case may be. I think it's important to really have a conversation with yourself and understand and discern between wants and needs. And wants and needs could be different for different people. So by way of example, and again, this is another lesson that I learned from COVID, internet access, maybe a couple of years ago may have been a want, not necessarily something that we needed. But with COVID, we realized that we have internet access. Your job might require you to work from home. So again, your needs and wants, it's important to be able to discern between the two. Now, in budgeting, there is what is called the 50-30 budgeting guidance. And this was made by an American. Essentially, what she's saying is, if you have 100 Namibian dollars when you're putting together your budget, $50 of, and as I mentioned here, housing, transport, groceries, utilities, and the likes. $30 must go towards your wants, and then $20 must go towards your savings. And savings here, again, is around retirement, investing, or even creating an emergency fund. Again, another lesson that we've learned from COVID, where I'm sure a number of us lost loved ones, family members, friends. You need to have that emergency fund to take care of these eventualities. One thing I want to highlight is that this is but a guideline, so it can be tailor-made to your circumstances. By way of example, my younger brother, he's 31. He does not have, he's not married, he does not have kids, he lives in a bachelor flat. So he can potentially afford to increase probably 30%. And I encourage him to do so. On the other, I have a wife, 2 kids. I need to take care of them as well. So I try and ensure that I 20%, which is not easy, ladies and gentlemen, you know. But that's what I try and do. And what I then need to grapple with is ensuring that I minimize my expenses across both the needs as well as the wants. Okay. How do you do that? We have some ideas here, bullet points of what you could potentially do. And it goes without saying, it starts off with focusing on your needs, not wants, paying off your debts and reducing the interest that you are charged. I made the example earlier around a bond or a loan from the bank. Cut costs like electricity. We know geyser is very, very expensive. It eats a lot of electricity. So you want to be able to cut that down as much as possible. Invest in your education. You'd be surprised how much you can find on the internet. YouTube is actually quite powerful. You mentioned YouTube, some of the viewers potentially are. There's so many videos on YouTube actually teach you. You know why? Somebody has to come and do it. You can actually do it yourself, or potentially do it yourself. These are just some ideas that we're sharing with you. Consider sharing a commodity if possible. Carpool, cycle, or walk rather than buying a car. I know that a lot of the residents of Rehoboth and Okahanja that actually work in Windhoek carpool as a way to save costs. The city of Windhoek has been so kind. I think in Florence Nightingale and other parts of the city, they've created a bicycle lane. So you can potentially take advantage of that as well. But again, these are just ideas that you can potentially consider in as far as trying to cut down on your costs. Be a conscious shopper, develop healthy habits, and then look for inexpensive entertainment options. So those are a few ideas that we would like to share with you. Another important element of financial planning is retirement. Excuse me. Sorry. It's retirement. And we've seen it time and time again. I'm sure a lot of you have stories where you know of a family member. At retirement, they receive their lump sum, they take that, they go buy a Land Cruiser. Or they take that money, they go buy a rental. Now the question you need to ask yourself, or even start a business, do you want to be taking that kind of risk at that stage? Probably not. Now, the statistics that we're showing here are based on a study that was carried out in South Africa, but I think that to our circumstances as well. Only 6% of people can afford to retire comfortably. 6%. 16% of retired people are fully dependent on state pensions or government pensions, which more often than not is just not enough. And then 31% of people who reach retirement age must keep on working to earn a living. Potentially they spend more than they actually earned, or they did not start early enough saving towards retirement, which I will touch on the next slide. And then 47% of people who reach retirement age depend on family members or friends to support them financially. I think what I want to highlight here is that it's important that we put aside the right amount in line with our current lifestyle expectations as early as possible. So when the time comes for retirement, I'm hoping that you will be in the 6% bracket. That is the idea. Now, this is basically where we highlight what is the right amount, perhaps you're asking. So if you started saving for retirement at the age of 25, you will have needed to save about 15% of your salary towards your retirement. Now, if you were living your best life and you did not save for the first couple of years, and you start at 35, that jumps to 30%. So 30% of your salary must then go towards saving for retirement. And if you waited an additional 10 years and you only started at the age of 45, it's almost 60% of your salary must be set aside if you want to retire comfortably. Now, I don't know about you, but there is no way I can afford to set aside 60% of my salary. So it goes without saying. And I think the message really from my side before I hand over to my colleague Etienne is that we need to spend less, we need to save more, we need to start early, and we need to invest. On that note, Etienne? There you go, sir.
Thank you very much, Joseph. Also, a very good morning, ladies and gentlemen, from my side. Yes, I mean, this is a very worrying slide, right? And I think this ties in very nicely to the next slide I'm going to show you. And that is, why should we invest? Because you can ask yourselves, but I'm already contributing to the GIPF. I'm already contributing to my pension. Why must I be investing or saving more? The reality is that there are different needs in our lives in different stages. Some of them are short-term, and that can include, you look at your kitchen and you think, oh, I need to paint this thing out next year, so I'll be putting money away for that. That's an example of a short-term investment or savings goal. Then that you get ones that are maybe in 2 or 3 years from now. Maybe you think, okay, I'm still a bit young, I've just started working, but I'm going to put some money away already now to eventually put down a deposit for a car. Or, you know, you've seen that person you like a lot. There's no money for the ring now, but you're going to put some money away until there's enough to go and buy, you know, the ring or plan for the wedding. So that's sort of a medium term. And then you get the medium long-term goals. That can include, you know, because typically what happens if you get married, you want a home, you start a family. So you can say, okay, I identify that goal now already for something that's going to come in years from now. Because remember, your pension is not available during your life, it's only at the end of the life. And then Joseph just mentioned to us that only 6% of us can afford to retire comfortably. And if you take a second and consider that, I've just did a quick count of everybody in this room. We are about 70 people. Now here's the bad news. Only the people in this front row will be able to retire successfully. I'm not saying you specifically, but there's a number of people. You're safe, sir. Right? But this is the hard reality. Now I think the last thing you want to do is go back to your children when you're old one day and say, you know that room that you're not using in the house, please can I stay there? You want your dignity to be preserved. You don't want to look anyone else in the eye and become a beggar. I think that's the biggest thing. I know I love my mother, but I know I don't want my mother to be in a position to come to me and ask. Of course I will offer. But this is the reality. But we know this. And because we know this, we can plan for this, right? And that is why we have to invest in addition to our pension fund savings. Now the question is where? Now when I showed this slide to my wife, and I love to use my wife, because I always think she's the most intelligent person I know. She's got 2 master's degrees. But when I showed her this slide, she said, Etienne, you've got me. What are bonds? I don't know what it is. Property? Yes, we have a house. So let me explain quickly. Cash. Most of us, when we think of saving, you think, go to the bank, put your money in the bank. It's safe, I don't have to worry, and it will grow a little bit. I get my interest on that money that I invest there. But I'll explain later why this is not always the case. Bonds. Bonds is a thing that you can invest in. It can give you every year, it can give you some return. And if you are lucky, the money you put in can grow a little bit as well. A typical example of a bond is a government bond. You know, and what governments tend to do, governments borrow money. So once a month or so, the Namibian government will come to the market through the Bank of Namibia and say, we need to build a new road. Please, pension funds or individuals, can you borrow us some money? So we lend money to the government. That's called a government bond. And the government says, okay, lend me that money for 10 years. I'll give you a percentage interest every year. And at the end, I'll give you back your capital. That's an example of a bond. Now, when we think of property, as I said, we think about our houses. But you see all these fancy buildings not far away from here in Independence, the shopping malls that we all know, those belongs to property companies, right? And those property companies are typically companies that we as individuals or pension funds can also invest in. Commodities, gold, platinum. Namibia is a big producer of uranium. You can invest in those. You can invest in the company, in gold mining companies. You can invest in gold coins. So those are examples, also examples of things that you can invest in. And then equities. Now I don't like the word because I know it is shares. Now what is a share? I mean, it's something that you hear, you know, all my fancy friends when I was at university said, I'm buying shares, and I have no idea what it is. Now, a share is quite simple. You can take any business here. Let's take a big supermarket. Now, that big supermarket is typically a company, and it belongs to people. Now, the people who own that supermarket have got shares in the supermarket, right? And just like that, we as individuals or in the pension fund, you can buy shares in different companies. Now, in Namibia, there are about 7 or 8 primary listed companies on the Namibia Stock Exchange where each one of us can buy shares. Namibia Breweries, the banks. There are many examples. And some of this would be in your portfolios as well. So those are examples of shares. And I'll touch on, in a slide or two, I'll explain to you how there's an easy way to invest in all of these things. Because if you just look at this thing and you think, okay, where am I going to buy bonds? Where am I going to buy this gold? And that's expensive. I'll explain a very nice, affordable, and convenient way to invest in all of these things in a slide or two from now. Investing is not without risk. I think you must be the most, when you hear somebody say, I guarantee you, then you've got to run away. There are no guarantees with investing, and no matter what type of investment it is, there are no guarantees. Now, one of the prime examples of the risks that come with investing is capital risk. That is the loss of the risk of permanently losing your investment. Joseph mentioned taking some extra money and buying cows. Now imagine you go to the auction, you buy this cow that you've always wanted, this beautiful bull. And then in 2 days, you walk in the field and you see that thing lying on its back, legs up, bloated. Nothing you can do with it. You can't even save the meat. That's an example of how you can permanently lose your investment. There's another one called inflation. Now, if you open the newspaper, almost every day you will read about inflation. And the thing is, most of us, even in the investment world, don't fully comprehend the impact of inflation. And it's perhaps the one thing that we should be most worried about. So what is inflation? So I remember 13 years when I moved to Namibia, when my Namibian wife said I had no choice, I have to live in Namibia. I could come here, I could take out a $10 bill, and I could buy a beer. Now, if you go to a bar or a place, I need 2 $10 bills to buy that same beer, right? And we use the example of milk here, but I don't drink milk, I prefer beer. But so now I need 2 of these $10 bills to buy that same beer that a few years ago cost me one $10 bill. The difference is inflation, is that you need more money now to buy the same thing. And this is the problem, because if you don't save somewhere where your money grows enough, or even more than inflation, then you've got to find some more money to buy that same bread, that same milk, and so on. Another one is a word called volatility. What does this mean? Now, I've asked some of the members in the room here, you get once or twice a year, you get your GIPF statement, and you look at your statement and you see, okay, my money is a little bit more, my pension is a little bit more. But there are circumstances or periods where that money would only be a little bit more. It will only be more with the contribution. So your investment can go up and down, up and down. You can invest $100 today, and tomorrow it's only worth 98. And you think, oh my goodness, I'm going to lose my money, right? That is volatility. And I'll explain now why one should be aware of this, these risks, and why they can sometimes also be your friend. Money in the bank, money at Nampo Savings Bank, right? People think this is the safest way, and it perhaps is, I don't want to put money under my mattress. There are certain realities that money can be gone very quickly. But there have been instances, and not too far away, where one of our neighbors, where this cash became worthless, right? So we have to look out, or just, I think the point I'm trying to convey is that there's no single investment in this world that's free of risk, not even cash in the bank. And that is why there's that old saying of don't put all your eggs in one basket. Why? Because if that basket drops, you will just see cracked eggs. Okay? So one way of diversifying is investing in all those different things that I've showed you 2 or 3 slides back. Cash, bonds, commodities. Another way of diversifying is by investing all over the world. Now again, I'll show you just after this one how you can achieve this, how it is possible to do this. Most of us sitting here will have a thing in their pocket called a cell phone, and that thing could either be a Huawei or a Samsung, or if you've got a lot of money, an Apple, right? Now these companies are all over the world, situated, you know, Samsung is in Korea, and Apple in the United States. You can actually invest, as individuals in Namibia, you can invest in those companies overseas, right? And this is, so you don't only just buy all those different cash bonds, shares, etc., also invest in the rest of the world, because the reality is Namibia, as beautiful as it is, combined with South Africa, is less than 1% of the world's total economy that one can invest in, what we call the investable universe. So it's tiny. So why would you put all your savings and everything that you have in just this tiny part of the world? Okay, so what is this way, this that I've mentioned, where one can invest, that you can have exposure to cash and bonds and commodities in Namibia, in South Africa, all across the world? What is this thing that can give you and I access or the opportunity to invest in all of that thing in one single account? And that thing is called a unit trust, right? So for me, the easiest way to understand a unit trust, I think of it as a basket. And that basket is called the portfolio or the fund. Now, Alan Gray, as an investment manager, and we are one of many in Namibia, are the ones that then decide, okay, what types of shares shall we put into this basket so that we can grow our investors' money? What type of bonds, which are the best bonds to put in? If we go and we take all our clients' money and we go to the bank, we can negotiate a better interest rate. So we will decide what cash goes into that basket, and then shares. Just at Alan Gray alone and our offshore partner, Orbis, that have offices across the world, we've got 60 or 80 investment professionals looking at all these opportunities across the world. Is it better to buy Samsung or better to buy Apple? Or should we have both? There are people making this decision, you know, on behalf of the investor. So that is a unit trust. It's this basket full of different types of investments, even gold, where individuals like you and I, and my mother and your sister, your grandmother, my nephew, can invest in a very affordable way, and you get exposure to all those different things. Okay, I'm going to ask a question, and I'd like you to take a vote on this. Because with investments, one of the biggest obstacles in being successful at investments is our own emotions. It really is. Our own emotions and our own behavior is our worst enemy. Let's do an experiment. So if I tell you that I'll give you $1 Namibia now, and every day for the next 30 days, I'll double this. So I'll give you this dollar today, and tomorrow I'll give you 2, and the day thereafter, I give you 4, and then 8, 16, 32, 64, etc. For 30 days, I'll double this $1. Or I'll just give you $1 million tomorrow. $1 million cash. What would you choose? So let's take a vote. Who of you will choose the $1? $1 doubled every day. I count about 7 out of the 70. 9 out of the 70 people is willing to risk taking $1 and tomorrow 2 and the day thereafter 4. Who would like the $1 million tomorrow? $1 million cash, hard currency, $200 bills in a suitcase. Yeah, don't laugh. We all know we want that million, right? I'll quickly show you what it looks like if we double this $1 coin, this nimble, innocent little round thing, and we double it every day for 30 days. Yesterday, when I had a look at this, I thought this was $1 million. It's $1 billion. It's $1,073 million Namibia dollars. And you say to me, Etienne, you're crazy. So let's have a quick look. So we start off with $1 on day 1, right? Day 2, so what is today? It's Thursday. So by next Thursday, we'll have $64. The Thursday thereafter, it'll be $65,000 already. And so it goes on. On day 26, 33 million. On day 30, it will be $536 million. You double that once more, you have $1 billion. So why am I showing you this? Not for a single moment suggesting that we can double your money every day for 30 days. That's not the point. The point we're trying to make here is a concept called compounding, is that you put away and you get growth on what you've saved. And then you get growth on top of the growth, and growth on top of the growth. And so it continues. So if you just diligently invest some money over the long term, you can achieve huge investment successes, right? So don't try this at home, because you'll soon run out of $1 coins. But the principle is very much true. But it also shows us that immediately you think, the $1 million, I'd rather take that. Most of us, including myself, don't always fully grasp the power of compounding on that growth on growth on growth on growth. Okay. Then remember I said emotions and behaviors. Those are our obstacles. Those are the things that are in the way, that stand in the way of us being successful at investing. And one thing I also want to point out, you do not need a lot of money to invest. You don't. There are unit trust funds in Namibia where you require $250 a month, $500 a month, $750, $1,000. There are very affordable ways to access these unit trust funds that gives you exposure to make you owners of those shares, those bonds, gold, etc. You need not a lot of money to invest in these things. And if you do that diligently for the long term, trust me, you don't have to go to your children and say, please owe me $100, right? Because that's how much a bread will be in 20 years from now. So what should you as an individual then do to make sure that you are successful at investing? When my car breaks down, I don't open that bonnet even. I don't know. I can check oil, that's it. And I can fill that thing for the wipers. But I can't do anything else, right? I take it to a mechanic. That's what I do. The problem is a lot of people, we think we can do things ourselves, right? I've got my mother-in-law's a bit like that. You know, if you say, oh, my leg hurts, she opens a box there and she's got medicine for everything. But she's not a doctor, she's a lawyer. But lawyers think they can do everything. The reality is, even in investing, even myself that work for an investment firm, I go and see a financial advisor every year and I tell him my plan and he will tell me, Etienne, I kind of agree or I disagree. So what should you do? Focus on the things that matter and the things that you can control, right? And that is what you should focus on, a combination of that. We have no control over the war in the Ukraine. We have no control over drought. So don't lie awake about this. And with investments, it's the same thing. Let the investment managers, whose work it is to invest this money, do the work for you. Fear and greed. It's another obstacle. It's another emotion that causes us to make mistakes. When I hear that my friends have made money buying cryptocurrency, I think, oh, I also want to buy Bitcoin. Definitely, I'm going to buy Bitcoin. I can tell you I did buy Bitcoin. I lost a lot of money. But this is how human emotions are. Because if your friend is making money, you've got that greed. I also want to make money, right? And typically when you invest, you will see it often, you will get in, and then all of a sudden you see your investment go down. And you think, okay, let me rather sell. Let me just take whatever is left and I move out. But typically in investments, and with unit trusts especially, this is where in companies like ourselves see a lot of opportunity in the market, right? Because would you rather pay, a decent price for something, or do you want to pay a very expensive price for something? And this is how investments work. There's cycles. It goes up and down all over the years, okay? But be careful not to be tempted to go into something just because someone else have made money. And don't panic when your investment goes down a little bit. It is necessary to achieve that long-term success, right? And this is why we say, sometimes you look at the brochure of these unit trust companies and you see this thing has done 15%, but I've only done 10%. It is because you move in and out, and then you're here, then you're there, you invest in that thing and the next thing. The best thing is to invest and sit on your hands and leave it till you've reached, till the time have passed for your goal to have realized. Okay? Does it make sense? We all love farming. Surely when you plant carrots, you don't go out to the field every morning and you pull on that little piece of green and see how far is my carrot. You've got to wait, because we know it takes about, I don't know, how long does a carrot take to grow to maturity. But with investments, it's the same thing, right? But sometimes we are tempted and then we pull on that little thing. The moment that orange bit of the carrot is exposed to sunlight, you've got to put it in the salad or in the stew, right? And that sort of actions, that behavior by us as human beings to panic, that causes what we call the behavior gap. And that means your investment grows less than what it could have done. There are two role players that are required in successful investing, right? It is the investment manager, for example, Alan Gray. We are needed, but then you are needed as well. The individual, the investor. Like a marriage, there are two partners. So what do we do as the investment firm? Investment returns. That's our job, to grow the money that you have worked very hard for. That is our job, right? And then we try and give the best possible service. What is your role? Your role is to sit on your hands and watch your money grow. But it is so boring. Somebody once said it's like watching paint dry. You just look at that wall and you wait and you wait and you wait. It's not fun. It takes time. But that's just the reality. And if we get that right, if you get this partnership where the investment manager grows your money and you have the discipline to leave that money and don't touch it and don't be tempted to buy things you don't need, you'll be a successful long-term investor. I have to point this out. I'm not going to end on this negative note. But ladies and gents, we all see these schemes from time to time, right? Recently, remember a year or two ago, there was this WhatsApp $200 scheme. The moment somebody tells you, I guarantee you, then walk away. Or you can double your money. Or don't worry, we've got this covered. We'll sort you out. Or if you get 10 more friends to join this thing, I can tell you, you've got a 99% chance this is nonsense, right? Because there's no such thing as a free lunch. There's no such thing as getting rich quickly. In South Africa, one person a week wins the lottery. Some weeks, not even, okay? So that's 365 people that will win the lottery in a year out of 60-odd million people. In a year, we don't even have a lottery. So be very tempted. Unfortunately, hard work and putting your money in, investing your money, that's a sure way, to be successful. If you're in doubt, if somebody comes to you and say, Madam, please give me $1,000 and I will double this money for you. Check on Amfisa, this is the financial regulator in Namibia, or the Bank of Namibia, the central bank. Go to their website, phone them, say, I just want to check whether ABC Investment Company is legit. Right? You've worked hard for your money, don't throw it away. And these guys are everywhere, and they're clever, and they will tell you the stories. So just watch out for these scams. And as Joseph said, go to YouTube and read up. I mean, for those who prefer listening over reading, there are even podcasts that you can listen to on how to be better investors. Some of these are available on the Alan Gray website. The link is there also in the booklets. Go and read up from time to time. If you don't know what a bond is, Google what a bond is. But educate yourself, empower yourself. Because I can almost guarantee you, if you just empower yourself this way, and you have the discipline, and you get emotions out of the way, then you will be a successful investor. And again, you don't need a lot of money for that. And with that, I say thank you very much. And Joseph and I welcome any questions that you might have. And if there are no questions, we will be around, I think, around about 1 o'clock this afternoon. There will be another opportunity for questions. 4 of us that are currently here will also be here at 1 o'clock to answer, on a one-on-one basis, any questions that you might have. And don't worry, we're not going to try and sell you anything. We will just give you provide you with guidance or answer any questions that you might have on what we've presented today. Wonderful question, ma'am. Right. Yes. So the question, just for everybody's sake, the question is whether there are consultation fees. I think maybe I should just take a second to explain. You get financial advisors. These are individuals that are licensed by NAMFISA to provide financial advice. Then you get people who manage the actual money. That is us. We are not allowed to give financial advice. But what we can do and what we can assist with, and which is entirely free of charge, even the coffee that we'll give you when you visit, we won't charge for, is guidance. As guidance is factual information on how investments work. We cannot tell you that gold is better than platinum or that a share in this bank is better than a share in that bank. That we cannot do. But we can equip you with the information to make your own informed decision. And if that is still not enough, then of course you can consult a financial advisor.
Okay, so does Alan Gray have financial advisors or you are just in investment?
Yeah. So currently the laws in the country do not allow for investment companies, investment managers like ourselves, to have financial advisors in our employment. So that is why at Alan Gray we always recommend independent financial advisors. So people that are licensed to give financial advice, but they've got no incentive whether they give you product A or product B. They can look at your unique situation and then make a recommendation based on your individual needs.
You have a list of those independent financial advisors?
Yes, so that list is available from NAMFISA as well, but we also know who they are. So you are more than welcome, to contact us, and we can also provide you with that same list.
Thank you.
Pleasure, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I want to find out what is the minimum amount to invest in a trust fund?
Okay, good question. So so the question is, what is the minimum amount that one can invest in a unit trust fund? So it also depends from asset management company to asset management company. So Alan Gray would be different to the competitors out there. Currently, as it stands, there are 2 options. If it's a single amount that you invest, so once off, at Alan Gray it's 20,000 NAM dollars, or if you want to make a monthly contribution, it's 500. Yeah. So that's why I said, it's not an inaffordable way to do it. But I would encourage you. I mean, today it's Alan Gray standing here, right? But we are not trying to sell Alan Gray products. So Also, research, look what is out there, look at the alternatives as well. Yes, ma'am.
You spoke about not putting eggs in one basket. Is there a product that includes all of this at Allen Gray?
Yes, ma'am. So, typically a unit trust. So the problem becomes that there are, between Namibia and South Africa, there are about 2,000 different unit trusts. And every unit trust fund has got a different objective. So what typically the types of unit trusts that will have what we call exposure, so that we do have all those different things in there, the cash, the bonds, the commodities, have some in Namibia, have some across the rest of the world. Those are typically called balanced unit trusts, balanced funds. So those balanced fund unit trusts are the ones that will give you all this exposure. So everything in one convenient portfolio. And as I said, you know, when you do invest, even that $500 a month, you will get, you know, a certain percentage of that $500 will go overseas into shares, will go into bonds, you know, in Namibia, or cash in Namibia, shares in Namibia, South Africa, and the rest of the world. So those are typically called balanced or multi-asset funds.
And this still can start as low as 500 at your fund, or is that?
Yes, ma'am. It's 500 at Allen Gray, but as I said, please do your homework, because there are other providers of unit trust funds where I believe it's even less, and there are some that are more. And you can invest in multiple unit trusts. You know, that's the beauty. And I think in Namibia there are about 9 of these balanced funds. These unit trust funds that give you exposure to all these different types of assets within one portfolio, and also across the world. Yes, ma'am?
The multi-fund trust fund, I mean, unit trust, is managed by Allen Gray. There's a different one, Allen Gray.
That is correct, ma'am. So Allen Gray is just one of the companies in Namibia that are registered as a unit trust manager in Namibia, in accordance with, there's an act called the Unit Trust Control Act. We are registered in terms of that act, and that allows us, we have a license to manage unit trust funds. But there are a number, I can't remember, about 13 or 14 of these registered unit trust companies in Namibia. Pleasure. Sir, there was a question at the back. No more? Right. Yes, sir?
We received a circular on the housing scheme of the government, where the interest rates for our subsidies will be fixed. So I think all of us are concerned about the interest rates. What government promised when they signed that agreement with the unions back in 2012, the agreement was that the subsidy that they are giving is their salary bands. So the subsidy that they are giving us will be that ratio of 68% subsidy for the lower bands, and then for the middle bands, and 70% for the lower bands. But currently, the circular that we received said the subsidy will be fixed at 10.75%. So we are quite worried, you know, that interest rates my interest rates, for example, is already at 10%. So, and it might, you know, raise to curb the inflation. So what would be your advice, you know, because they also advise us, you can also sort of save in that home loan account.
Yeah, that's a very good question, and this is exactly what I'm not allowed to tell you, that it's better to put your money into that. Look, the reality, if your interest rate is at 10%, and like Joseph said, you have some extra funds, you know, some extra cash in a month, and you put it into your bond, your mortgage, of course you will repay it. Not only will you repay it quicker, but if you shorten that period that you pay it off, you also save on the interest, right? So what I'm willing to say is that it is one way of saving. It is another way of investing, in addition to all the other investment options that are out there. But whether it is the best, the best way of saving, that I cannot say, because your situation might be very different to the gentleman sitting next to you or the lady behind you. And therefore, typically what a financial advisor will do is they will look holistically. They will look at all your unique circumstances, all your expenses, how many dependents you have, what is your salary, and they will have a formula or a calculation to say, you know what, sir, I think it's best you have $1,000 extra every month, so put 500, into the home loan and pay that off quicker, and 500 do something else with that. So it very much depends on one's unique situation.
Another question. When we heard about FEMA, some of the staff members, and I'm working in the HR department, so some of the staff members, they panicked, some of them resigned. And later on, these things were put on hold. But if I can tell you that the last salary adjustment that we received was in 2018 financial year, and this year. So I think quite a number of years, and people they're coming to HR and they ask us that question: what is the worth of waiting until 60? Because for the last 5-6 years I did not receive a single salary increase. And it's sometimes difficult because I also explain to them that the aspect of inflation, if they wanted to buy a Toyota Bucky for 500,000, maybe in 10 years it could be $1 million. Your money will be more in 10 years, but the inflation would have eaten up also that. So it's sometimes difficult to give them that advice. So I'm happy that I'm here today, and we can also tell them, listen, there are financial advisors that you can go and see and so on.
Also, I think the best thing is one can do a calculation. One can see, okay, if you leave now, and I think what you are referring to is that access to your pension before you retire. Now, in an ideal world, I'm not standing here and pretend that emergencies don't happen. Every now and then something happens where you require money and you simply don't have it, right? So I think then it's convenient to access your pension fund. Is it a good thing? In almost all cases, it's not. Because remember, you are taking money now. The problem is, if you are 43 years old like me, and you take half of your pension fund now, then it's half of the base that is gone. Half of the money where you get that growth on growth on growth is now disappearing. So say my pension fund was $200, now I take half, now it's only 100. Now I only get interest on that 100, whereas I could have gotten interest on 200. So in almost all cases, it's not a good idea to have. It should really touching your pension, because remember, we have no control over how long you live. If I knew I was going to die at 75, I'd spend my pension as quickly as I can. I'm not going to leave anything for anyone, because I've worked for that money, except my wife maybe, right? But if I knew when I was going to die. The problem is if you live beyond that. If you live till the age of 90, and you retire, what is retirement age at government? 60. So imagine if you retire at 60 and you live to 90, and you start working at, say, 23. So from 23 to 60 is 37 years, right? Now, in 37 years, you must earn enough money to live, do all the nice things you want to do, put the children through school, and save enough for your money to last another 30 years. It's almost impossible. And that is why only 6% of people get it right. To retire with the same salary, at the end as what they've had. Because what typically happens when you retire, you move to a smaller place. If you were lucky to have 2 cars, that 2 cars become 1 car, or that 1 car becomes, taking the taxi. So the problem is we don't know how long we're going to live. So if you are 43 years old and now all of a sudden you take half your pension for an emergency, we can shake hands on that now. You will retire. You will have a big problem. So what will end up, as one of my old colleagues said, and he was a grey old wise man who was a professor in economics in his day. He said, "You've got two options: you go back to work, or you die sooner." You know, it's not one is possible. So I'm not giving advice. As I said again, unique situations. But rather go and consult someone. Let a financial advisor do those mathematics for you. Let them do those calculations so they can show you what is the impact of leaving. Don't let FEMA scare you. You know, FEMA, to be honest, 13 years ago when I arrived in Namibia, people were talking about FEMA. It's 13 years later. It was supposed to be this month. You know, it's also been postponed. So let's wait and then see what the impact is. But rather consult someone before making just an irrational decision. Any more questions? As I said, we are also here this afternoon. If you want to take this time from now till then also to think about things, we'll be back and we'll happily answer them. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for asking that question. I think the purpose of today was not to come, as I said, and sell Alan Gray, because even our founder, Mr. Gray, there was actually a man called Alan Gray. He firmly believed that people must reach out and want to invest, want to put their trust in a company where you take your money that you've worked for very hard and trust us to grow that money. And that happened 49 years ago, in 1973, when Mr. Gray came back from the United States, where he was studying and working, and he found it, and he was in South Africa, and he saw that the investment sort of environment in South Africa was behind. You know, there were better ways for people to save money and to be better investors and to have better investment success. So what happened was he started a company that was then called Alan Gray Investment Council, and then fast forward to 2022, we are now a company that have a sister company, Orbis, with offices across the world. So why am I mentioning this? It means that we have people, investment professionals, that are based in Vancouver in Canada, or in Hong Kong, in Australia, in the United States, England, Luxembourg, that look at investment opportunities all over the world. So that is one advantage, and I'm not saying that we're the only ones like that, but that is one advantage, is that we've got people all over the world looking for the best investment opportunities for our clients. Then what also makes us different is that we are privately owned. This company belongs to a philanthropic organization, right? And the staff. So if Kitty and Rayanne and Joseph and myself, if we don't work hard, we're going to feel it in our pockets, right? And if we have investment success for our clients, the way our fees work is the more we grow the investments of our clients, the more we participate in the good news. If we do not, we even discount our fees. We are one of the few asset management companies out there that discount the fees, meaning the fees that we charge to manage money goes down if we do not deliver on our promise. So the company, we've got offices in South Africa, in Botswana, Namibia. This is our footprint, in Southern Africa. We are privately owned. We've got a huge investment capacity, people all over the world that look for this. And then, so personally, having worked for Alan Gray for nearly 7 years, I can tell you this. For me, the single biggest thing that I think that makes Alan Gray different to everyone else is that we realize and we recognize and we respect our clients. Because, we've got an office with a few computers and a few chairs and tables. That's all we have, and our clients. Without our clients, we don't have a business. I'll be out of a job tomorrow, right? So if we don't look after your money and respect the money that you've worked for, it's over. And I think every day we remind ourselves that every account in our books, there's an ID number. It's someone else's money, your sister, my grandmother. And I think that is, in my opinion, what makes Allen Gray unique. Over and above everything is that we take what we do seriously and we respect that. And we've been in Namibia. Our first client in Namibia was in 1984 when we opened an office in 1993. We are very much committed, to Namibia. We are not just some South African company that opened up an office here, definitely not. And I think that's what I would like to believe is the difference. So, okay, and I think there was one more question, if there is time, Mr. Amos?
I just wanted to ask about the scholarships. Are you still giving out those scholarships and so on?
Yes, sir. So thank you for that question. So Joseph, my colleague here, he joined the Allen Gray family at the Allen Gray Orbis Foundation. So Joe, maybe you want to take that one?
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Which grade and so on?
Yeah, no, the scholarship is available on an annual basis. You can actually apply for it. There is the website, the Allen Gray Orbis Foundation Namibia. I encourage you to have a look at that. The process typically starts in the beginning of every year, around February, March. So you can actually apply for that particular scholarship. Previously, so this was prior to 2015, the scholarship was available for students that were going to high school, so grade 8 to grade 12. Unfortunately, we had to put that particular scholarship on hold. So what we currently have is what we call a fellowship. Essentially, what that does is it focuses on students that are leaving grade 12 that are going to university. So we've partnered with a number of universities in South Africa, but we are currently working on perhaps creating partnerships with our local institutions of higher learning. But currently we have partnerships with about 10 universities in South Africa, where any of the students who are applying must then also apply to that particular university. They can apply for our fellowship. And I think what is unique about the foundation scholarship or fellowship is that it covers 100% of the costs associated with the studies for that particular student. The requirements can be found online. Typically we look at academic excellence, but also a passion for entrepreneurship. And I think that's one thing you'll see also about the foundation scholarship is that it's not about paying for a child's qualification. The idea for us is that we give you the skills, particularly entrepreneurship and leadership skills as well. So while you're doing your qualification, you also go through a comprehensive entrepreneurship and development and leadership development program. So that hopefully when you come back to Namibia, you can identify challenges and start a business. And you want to start a business, you can actually approach the foundation to also give you startup capital. So I encourage, I think, people around the room, if you have kids, loved ones that meet those criteria, that are avid entrepreneurs and want to really make a difference, please visit the Allen Gray Orbis Foundation website. As I said, the opportunity is available every year from around February, and then they run a comprehensive recruitment process. Okay, thank you.
I think we are not going to be done with questions today. That's why the two colleagues are going to be here from 1 until 2 or 3 for individual questions, because I know there might be some people out there that want to ask questions, but they are not able to ask questions. Therefore, we have a one-on-one, and then you guys will be able to ask those questions. Okay, let us thank Allen Gray, colleagues. What they have presented today is something that we would have paid for a lot of money. But Allen Gray sacrificed their time to come give us a free education that we would have paid, like I said from the beginning. The question was posed, what is the relationship between us, GIPF, and Allen Gray? The colleagues here, they just sent a good proposal to GIPF saying, we would like to educate your members on financial literacy for free. Give us an opportunity so that we can talk to your members. Whatever they are doing here, they are doing it for free. And colleagues, you are the first ever group for these colleagues here to give a free education on financial literacy. Therefore, we must give them or must they agree.
Thanks, guys.
They want also, part of the proposal, they want to visit all the 14 regions of this country to give again free education to all Namibians, GIPF members, but we're not going to restrict it to GIPF members. Those are people that want to come listen, they can always come listen. That's why we have all these live streaming devices here, so that whoever, wherever in the world, they can also learn from the colleagues here. If there are questions, like I said, we can always address those questions afterwards. Because of the time, we are going to welcome the next presentation by Ms. Bako. I forgot to mention something. As for GIPF, we can only talk about pension benefits. That at the age of 60 or 55, this is what you are going to do, this is what you need to do. But we cannot talk about what? We cannot talk about bonds. We cannot talk about unit trust. We cannot talk about that when you have your only cash in whatever thing, or when you put your eggs in one basket, this is what will happen. We won't be able to tell you that. But the colleagues here, these are the experts, and they are giving to you for free. Let them free, don't forget it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Okay, good.
Good morning, fellow members. Please do not leave. I won't even give you a 5-minute break because I know if I say that, you will not come back. As Amos said, we will not talk about bonds and other things because our expertise really lie on pension benefits. And that is what we are going to talk to you about. That as a member of the fund, as a member of GIPF, what are benefits? So for this morning, we are going to go through fund governance, admissions and amendments. How do I get admitted as a member of the fund? We'll talk about resignations, retirements, all type of retirements. That if I go on early retirement, if I go on whatever retirement, what are my benefits? We'll also talk about death benefits so that you know exactly if you die in service, what benefits will be paid. And if you die after retirement, what benefits will be paid? We'll also talk about funeral benefits. We'll talk about a bit about membership data. We'll also talk about some of the challenges that we are experiencing as a fund and what we expect from the employer and what we expect from you as a member of the fund. And we will then have the questions thereafter. So GIPF was established with effect from the 1st of October 1989, and it was by an act of parliament. It administers pensions for all civil servants in the country and other participating employers. For example, your social security and other participating employers. And the fund is administered through an act of parliament. On act of parliament and by the Pension Fund Act, that's number 24 of 1956. And other applicable acts like your Income Tax Act and all those other things. They say tax is like death, is one of those certain things that it's, and many members still complain, but when I'm working, I'm paying tax. Why am I being taxed again when I go on retirement? So we will talk a little bit about that. And GIPF is a defined benefit fund, and the benefits are guaranteed. Before we get into the nitty-gritties, let me just spend a little bit time defining the difference between a defined benefit and then the defined contribution. And as I said, GIPF is a defined benefit. With a DB, the benefits are based on a formula. And it's defined in the rules to say when you retire, this is what you will get. While with a defined contribution, the only thing that is defined is the contributions. And with a defined benefit, the employer, who is the sponsor, is the one who takes the risk. While with a defined contribution, as a member, you are the responsible for the risk. And with a defined benefit, the benefit is known. You are able to come, or if you see your benefit statement, you can see if I retire, I will get maybe 1.2 as a lump sum, and this will be the monthly pension. While with a defined contribution, the benefit is not known. Because a defined contribution works like a saving account, where your employer and the employee contribution goes into that saving account, and only then at the end of the term, for example, when you are going on retirement, they will then take off the administration expenses, etc., and then, only then, you will know exactly how much you are getting. Also, with a defined contribution, for example, if something happened in the market and the investment are not good and the fund does not do well, as a member, you are then responsible for that shortfall. While with a defined benefit, the benefit is guaranteed. And if anything, for example, happen and investments do not do well, then the sponsor, who is the employer, will then do good and make provisions for that. As I said, a pension benefit is a condition of service, and then it's only for participating employers. For example, you have to be younger than 60 years, and your starting date is your admission date. Meaning, if the member starts on the 1st of September 2021, that will be the admission date to the fund. And one also does not have an option. You cannot say, no, I don't want to belong to GIPF, I want to belong to another pension fund. Okay, and the monthly contribution, as an employee, you pay 7%, the employer pays 16%, and that comes to 23%. And from here, I would want each and every one, please go back, once you go back to the office, take your pay slip and calculate the basic salary times the 7% to check whether you are paying the right contributions. Because sometimes we have also picked up that there are members where the contributions are not being paid correctly. And sometimes those are some of the things that will then delay, because when you are resigning or when you are retiring, we will go through and check whether you have paid enough contributions. Okay, and then who qualifies to be a member of the fund? You have to be a full-time in the employment of a participating employer. And those who are not eligible is, for example, somebody who's paid solely by means of fees or allowances, or the person does not have an identity document or does not qualify for an identity document, meaning they are younger than 16 years. Or a person is employed on contract, which makes provision for the payment of lump sum. Sometimes in our employment, we have, for example, maybe consultants, where the contract says this person will work for 2 years, and at the end of that contract, they will then be paid a lump sum of 100,000 or whatever. That person will not qualify to be a member of the fund. Or the person is a seasonal worker, casual, or a holiday worker. For example, somebody goes on maternity leave, and then the employer gets somebody to work for 2 or 3 months. That person will not qualify to be a member of the fund. Or if a person is reappointed after retiring from service, they will also not be qualified. They will not be eligible. And this is quite important, because that is one of the questions that we get mainly from the employers. Maybe you go on early retirement or you work until 60, but the employer still wants your services. So what we then advise members to do is that you have to enter into another kind of a contract to say, after you have retired, you get your money from GIPF, and then you will then enter into a contract with the employer where pension contributions will not be deducted. And that is mainly something from the tax directive to say a person, you cannot be retiring from the same fund twice. Or if you are employed for a certain period or a specific assignment, as I said, you are employed maybe for 2 years or whatever, then you cannot become a member of the fund. I'm not going to go into details on the documentations for admissions, but what is important here is the identity document for you as a member and for the dependents also. We also need the certificate for registration as a taxpayer for income tax. We need your marriage certificate and your dependents' full birth certificates. It's very important that when a member is admitted, we want to already build their pension file so that by the end, if there is any withdrawal, we already have their details. So marriage certificate, your kids' full birth certificate should already be in the file. We will touch more on that, why it's important to do that, especially when we talk about death benefits. Okay, and then the admission, there is an admission form that needs to be completed by the employer, and it must then be submitted to the fund within 3 months. And once you are admitted, you are then given a unique pension membership number, and that is the reference that we will be referring to you throughout the fund. And seeing that you are close to GIPF, I hope you all know what your pension membership number is. And we also open during lunchtime. Please make time, come to the officer so that you can really just check, am I registered? How much have I saved so far? Because it's very, very important. And as the colleagues from Alan Gray were talking about, that is how you start preparing for your retirement. Because you cannot plan for retirement if you don't even know how much you will be getting when you go on retirement. Okay, the next topic is amendments. Throughout your membership with the fund, things will change. For example, you get married, you transfer, today you are working for environment, and then you are moving to another ministry. So the fund needs to be informed so that we know exactly how you are throughout the membership. For example, if personal particulars change, let's say you were a Van Wyk, today you get married and then you are a Maswahu, we need your marriage certificate. If you transfer from one ministry to another, we also need to be informed so that if we are communicating to the Ministry of Agriculture, we don't include you in that list anymore. But now we know, okay, maybe you are with the State House or you have moved to another employer. And if your ID change or whatever, it is your responsibility as a member to really go to HR and inform HR that, no, I got married, this is my marriage certificate, this is my new ID, etc. Because sometimes HR is not even aware that you got married. So as a member, it is your responsibility to ensure that you inform and then all your documentations are up to date. Okay, the next topic, resignation. You are working for the National Planning Commission, you decide, no, I've had enough. I'm going to start my own business. What are the benefits? Okay, according to Rule 7 of the pension fund, there are 3 withdrawal options. And those are the only options that if you resign, that you are eligible for. The first one is a cash withdrawal. The second option is a transfer benefit to an approved fund. The third one is a deferred pension. Let me just go into details for each one. With a cash withdrawal, the benefit is taxable. And the benefit that you will be paid will only include the member's portion plus the interest. And that was done specifically to sort of discourage members from resigning. Remember, there is a contract between you and the employer, and they want you to work until you retire, but now you are going on you are resigning. And if you take the cash withdrawal, and even if you look at your benefit statement, the cash withdrawal option is always less. You'll sometimes see on the benefit statement that maybe the cash withdrawal is 50,000 and the transfer is 200,000. And we also don't advise members to take that cash withdrawal. For example, if we receive a form and the person indicates that we want the cash withdrawal, usually we will contact and tell or advise members the pros and the cons of the cash withdrawal. The second option, which is what we advise members to do, is to transfer to an approved fund. Meaning you are working for agriculture and then you are going to work for Ottawa and List. You can request GIPF to transfer your money into another fund where you are going. Maybe it's NamWater, Ottawa and List, or whatever. That will then be transferred into their pension fund or provident fund. With the preservation fund, it's also that type of fund where you can transfer your money. And with the preservation fund, these are usually with the insurance brokers, with the insurance companies, your Old Mutual, Sanlam, etc. GIPF also has a preservation fund called Kuleni. The third option is a retirement annuity. With a retirement annuity, you are basically saying, okay, I'm resigning. I don't want to touch my money because this money is really only for my retirement. That money will then be transferred into a retirement annuity. And the retirement annuity works exactly like a pension fund in that you will only be able to then, from the age of 55, you will then be paid a lump sum and the monthly pension. The only difference is that with the retirement annuity, there's no employer relationship. As an individual, you can have a retirement annuity. While with the pension fund, there must be an employee and the employer. And when you are resigning, please do shop around. If you are transferring to whatever preservation fund, shop around and check, okay, Old Mutual, Sanlam, Kuleni. Number one, you need to check what is the commission that these companies are going to charge, and how long do I have to keep the money before I can take off. Because the preservation fund, you can decide, maybe you got $1 million, that's your pension benefit, but you don't need to use the whole amount. You can then decide, okay, I'm putting the whole $1 million into that preservation fund, but I only need maybe 200,000. So you will then apply to the preservation fund so that they pay you the 200,000, and on the 200,000 tax will be paid. Tax will be deducted, and then the 8% you will then keep until or whatever. So to always plan properly, because it doesn't help you resign, you get your 1 million and then you are keeping it in the cash, because tax will have to be deducted from that amount that you're getting. When that money is paid to Old Mutual or to Sanlam, it will be $1 million. Tax will not be deducted, but from the moment you withdraw from that preservation fund, tax will then be deducted. So do shop around and then make your plans accordingly so that you only take what you need at that point. And the third option is a deferred pension. With the deferred pension is that you must have worked for 10 years and more. And that will then be preserved within the fund. Because basically what you are saying, okay, I'm resigning, but I don't really want this money. I will keep it within GIPF, and then when I turn 55 or 60, GIPF will then pay me a pension, which is a lump sum and the monthly pension. At the moment, this option is not very popular because whenever members resign, they want to access their money. That's why the most preferred option is the preservation fund. But even with that, please plan and shop around. And all these three benefits that I've talked about, they are based on the age, final salary, and the service period. These are the factors that we will use to calculate your benefits. And we will talk about later on why it's important for us to have all your correct information. Because if your age is not correct, if your final salary is not correct, your benefit will not be correct. And the documents that we need, main important is your ID again, and the proof of banking particulars will only be needed if you are taking the cash withdrawal. And if you are transferring to another fund, for example, to an other enlist fund or whatever fund where you are going, we then need the request for the transfer of benefits. Another one is the permission for the deduction of debt, but we are going to talk about that at a later stage. Can I talk about the retirements and then we just break a little bit so that we can handle questions on resignations and retirements at the same time? Is that fine? Okay. So the benefits, retirements, we are going to talk about normal retirement, early age retirement, early ill health, disability, late retirement, and retrenchment. Those are the benefit types under retirement that we are going to discuss. Normal retirement, you retire at the age of 60. That is according to the rules. For example, you turn 60 on the 5th of October, you will work until the end of October, and then you will then retire with effect from the 1st of November. That is also one of the questions that many members ask, but no, but I'm retiring on the 5th. Why do I have to work until the end of the month? And the question that we always ask, but are you going to get a salary for that month? And if it is, you then have to work until the end of the month. And the benefits that will then be paid is a lump sum, which is tax-free, and it's 1/3. We always say in Namibia, we must still consider ourselves as fortunate because the lump sum, however amount, it's still tax-free. In South Africa, for example, the lump sum is taxable to a certain extent to say, okay, maybe the first million is tax-free and thereafter you start paying tax. But in Namibia, it's tax-free. In addition to the lump sum, you also get a monthly pension, which is 2/3, and which is a lifelong pension, and it's taxable if it's more than 4,100 per month, which is 50,000. That is a requirement from the income tax that your retirement pension is taxable. And the question that is always is, when I'm working, I'm paying tax, why am I paying tax again? And the question, if you look at your basic salary, you take your basic salary less the 7%, that 7% tax is not deducted. For example, it's 5,000 minus 700 minus 1/3 of the housing, then you will pay tax on 4,000, not on the 5,000. Because it's then said tax is deferred, meaning you will pay tax when you receive that money now, the 7%, which is the monthly pension. So if it's in excess 4,100, tax is payable. And for us to determine how that is calculated, it's your final average salary times your years of service times the 2.4, which is a commutation factor. That was improved over the years. It used to be, for example, 1.6, and then it has been improved. So this is how we will calculate what will be paid to say, okay, once we get that, it's 3/3, 1/3 will be paid as a lump sum, and the 2/3 will be paid to you as a monthly pension. Early age retirement, this is any time from the age of 55. You can decide to go on early retirement, but obviously with the permission of the employer. So pension is adjusted by 0.25 for every completed month that you are going early. Let's say, for example, you want to go on early retirement at the age of 58, meaning for 2 years, GIPF will not receive contributions from you as an employee and the contribution from the employer. So we then have to adjust our calculations. Because initially we told you, per the benefit statement, that when you go on at the age of 60, your lump sum is 1.5. But now that you are going 2 years early, your lump sum will not be 1.5. We then have to adjust for the 2 years. That's really where the adjustment comes in. And we always advise members to say, if you are going on early retirement, please do get a quotation so that you know exactly how much you will be getting. Because sometimes members will get the benefit statement, it's 1.5, and then they go on early retirement at the age of 59. And then they'll come complaining, no, but you promised to give me a 1.5 million, and now I'm only getting 1.4. What happened to the 100,000? Not realizing that for the whole 1 or 2, they did not make any contribution. Like with the normal retirement, the early age retirement, you also get a lump sum, which is tax-free, and the monthly pension, which is taxable if it's more than 4,100 per month. Ill health, this is for somebody who is in a protracted nature, ill through no fault of your own, because as you are working, something might happen and you might need to be boarded on medical ground. So for a person to be boarded off, we need proof to the member's ill health, which is provided by the medical board, and it's on the recommendation of the Public Service Commission. So the member can be boarded on medical grounds. And this benefit again, which is ill health, you will be given a lump sum and a monthly pension. And this can happen at any age. For example, you might have, you are 45 and you get ill and then you are boarded off. So the other benefit where a member can be boarded on medical grounds is disability. So we have two types, it's ill health and disability. Whilst with the ill health, you get a lump sum and the monthly pension. With a disability, you continue to be a member of the fund, because with a disability, you only get 75% of your salary. And then you continue contributing. The 7% will be deducted from your disability income, and the employer will be sent on invoice every month so that they pay the 16%. While on disability, you can then only retire at the age of 60 or from 55 upon submitting a request to the fund. And as I said, while on disability, you continue to be a member of the fund, meaning 7% must be deducted, and then the employer must continue to pay. Late retirement. The Public Service Commission makes provision for members to go on late retirement. That is any age between the ages of 60 up to 67. But that is obviously with the approval of the employer. For example, if you have specialized skills, and maybe in your ministry you are the only forensic scientist or whatever, that the employer still need your services, and if you can work for another 2 years or whatever, then you can go on late retirement. And what we usually advise members who are going on late retirement is that they can either opt to receive the benefits at the age of 60, or they can wait until the late retirement date. Meaning at the age of 60, you complete your claim form, GIPF pays you, and then you continue working, but then under a contract. Because pension contribution 62 or 67, depending on when the agreement is ending. At the age of 67, then your retirement will be paid. So if you are in that case, pension, the employee and the employer contribution will continue to be deducted. And just like with all the other ones that we have talked about, what will be paid is the lump sum, which is 1/3 tax-free, and then the monthly pension, which is taxable if it's more than 4,100. The last one under retirement is the retrenchment. Retrenchment, like with the medical boarding, can occur at any age. For example, it results from the reorganization of the employer. Maybe the employer has come up with a new way of doing things, and then they don't need you as an employee anymore, and they decide to retrench you. The benefit that will then be paid depend on the age and prospect of future employability. So what we always advise employers to do is to say, before you retrench any member, please do get a quotation, because retrenchment is very costly, because there are additional years of service that the employer has to pay. Remember, with this benefit, you are not going by your own accord. It's the employer who has asked you to go, because they don't need your services anymore. Okay, and then what will then be? It can either be a withdrawal benefit or a normal retirement calculation plus additional years. I will then, what is called the bonus service. I will explain later on what is meant by a bonus service. It's either a 1/3 of the service, the difference between the date of retrenchment and the actual date of retirement, and the period of 5 years. Let's illustrate that by means of an example. Let's say, for example, this member is retrenched at the age of 40. Okay? So the bonus years will then be 1/3 of their years of service, which is 22. It's 7.3. The difference between 40 and 60, when they were retrenched, and the normal retirement, that difference is 20, or the 5 years. So we said the shortest of. So this person will then be paid on additional 5 years. Remember, this member, in actual fact, they've only worked for 22 years. But when they are paid, they will be paid as if they have worked for 27 years, because they will be given an additional 5 years. And that's why it becomes very costly, and we always advise employers to say, before you retrench, please do get a quotation, so that you know exactly how much you will be paying. Because there are various other options that employers can do. For example, if a person is maybe above the retirement age, early retirement age, 55, one can negotiate with the employer so that they can either go on early retirement or other that one can do, rather than putting a person on retrenchment and then they will be paid additional. What is important here? All the retirement benefits are paid directly into your bank account. So we need your proof of the banking particulars. We also need the Public Service Commission or employee request letter, for example, for those who are going on early retirement. Those are the main documents that we need. And obviously your certificate of income tax, because tax still has to be deducted, and we need what income tax number and everything is. Before we go on death benefits, can we just take a break and ask any on what I have just, whether it's on resignation, retirement? We're now all clear, and we know what to do in case if you are resigning, if you are going on retirement. Any question? Please don't leave. We still have death benefits, which is quite important, that we have to present. Any question?
A question on the deferred pension.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned you have to belong, or you have to be 10 years in service.
Yes.
Is it still applicable?
Yeah, it's still applicable. If you have, for example, only worked for 5 or less than 10 years, and you want to go to resign, then the only options that you have is the cash withdrawal and the transfer. So the deferred will then be applicable to you. Any other question?
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about after retirement,
Mhm.
that you don't get any benefits anymore. So why should the tax start? Because there was somebody querying about the tax deduction after retirement. And what happened with her was exactly, I don't know whose problem was it. Is it revenue or GIPF?
and she was owing tax. After all, she was submitting every year. So I want to know about the concern of tax, because some people is not in the tax table, but we on tax table for the years you have been never to taxes. So I want to know exactly what is the cause of that little money that you will be paid every year to be taxed. Is it according to the tax table which you have been allocated in the service, or how should they deduct the tax from a person? That's what I want to know. The tax that you have been taxed is different from tax table according to the salary scales. But after all, you retired, okay, the one that is untaxable. But when you get your monthly pension, it's still been taxed.
Yes.
And what happened with her was, I don't know whose fault was it revenue or what, and she have owned more than she could have supposed, and he has to arrange to pay that arrears, who should be blamed for the tax.
Okay.
And that's what I'm concerned. Even some salary scales are untaxable. But when they leave, are they still being taxed, or is it the same in full-time service, or is there a difference?
Okay, it's still the same tax table, and that's why we always advise members to say, whilst working, please ensure that every year you are submitting your tax returns. Because sometimes what happens, when you go on retirement, when you go on resign, that's when they catch, no, but this person has not been submitting tax returns for the past 5-10 years, and they will pick up the owe as ACD. But as I said, with the pension, it's only taxable if it's more than 4,100. At the moment, it's 50,000 per annum. What can happen is that, for example, you might be, maybe your your monthly pension is 3,000, meaning you are not supposed to pay tax because you are less than 50,000. But it's possible that you are receiving another income. Let's say, for example, you have a policy with Sanlam. That policy is paying you also 3,000. Now, with the receiver of revenue, they will then combine these two incomes to say it's the 3,000 from GIPF and the 3,000 from Sanlam. It becomes 6,000, meaning it becomes taxable. So what we then advise members to do is to say, if you know that you are receiving those multiple incomes, you go to any of the payers that are paying you, whether it's Sanlam or GIPF, and then make arrangements to say, okay, I'm receiving 6,000 from the multiple sources. The receiver of revenue will then make arrangements and say, deduct an extra 500 from the income of this person. Even though with the 3,000 it's not supposed to be paid, to be paying tax, but when those incomes are combined, you are going to pay tax. And that's where most of the time the challenge comes, where members owe the receiver of revenue more, simply because of those combined incomes. Did I answer your questions? But it's advisable to always go to the tax NAMRA to really just check whether you are in good standing and whether your tax is up to date. Yes, ma'am. No, the provision is only made to say if your income, the monthly pension is less than 4,100, you don't pay tax. But the moment it goes beyond 4,300, then you start paying tax.
Yes, I know. But is there another 3,000 coming from whatever the source comes? I already paid tax. How I can pay again for that 6,000 we put together?
No, remember on the other 3,000 that Sanlam or Old Mutual is paying you, they will not deduct tax because it's less than 4,100. And they will also not know that we are receiving another income from GIPF. That's why, as a taxpayer, it's your responsibility to now say, okay, no, I'm receiving these three incomes. When they are combined, they become taxable. Let me go to the receiver of revenue to make arrangements so that I can pay the extra tax. Because GIPF will not deduct tax from you because you are paying 3,000. Sanlam, it's 3,000. Old Mutual, maybe it's 3,000. But together, it's 9,000.
I understand what you're saying, but I believe also the people sitting here understand that. Because if you have 4,000, okay, you're not paying for that. But if you're receiving 2,000 more from another, by Salah or Mutual, it's already 6. Even for my understanding, is right. You know, necessarily you go there and to clarify. No, I can, that time you have 4 here and 2, and then that's together is 6. No, because everything must be, because they, you know, it isn't that way. So that is why I understand what you say, but for me it's something.
Okay, I understand that is a concern that we get from many members, but really the aim why we do this kind of engagements is to empower you with the information so that when you go on retirement or when you are receiving these incomes, you don't do the same mistakes. And then you are empowered, you are able to take those decisions. And the amount that is taxable, it used to be 30,000 per annum, and then it was increased to 50,000. And I'm sure every now and then it will be reviewed, but that is a decision by the Ministry of Finance. Yes, ma'am.
I just need clarity. The example that was given now regarding, say you receive an extra 3,000 This is on a policy that you have had for several years that is paying you out now. Is that what this?
No, only on pension. Let's say, for example, you had the retirement annuity. Remember, the retirement annuity is a private thing that you have paid over the years, and now you have 1055, and now Old Mutual is Old Mutual would pay you a lump sum and a monthly pension. So that monthly pension, maybe it's 3,000 per month. In addition, GIPF is paying you 4,000. If you look at the two amounts, they are not taxable. GIPF will not know that you have another income that you are receiving from Sanlam. But when you complete your annual tax return and you declare your income to the receiver of revenue, they will then pick up, no, but this person is actually receiving 7,000 per month, meaning you are supposed to pay tax.
But then now, my question comes in, like now what Alan Gray presented. I am going to take money from my monthly salary that I have already paid tax on to invest for my pension. So I've already paid tax on this income. And then again you go and tax me after retirement. That's like double taxing on this money.
No, as I've explained, let's say, for example, let's take your basic salary. Let's say your basic salary is 5,000, right? When they determine the tax, they will take 5,000 less the 7% of your employee contribution, which is, let's say, 500, less the 1/3 of your housing, all the things that are not supposed to be taxed. So the salary that you will then be, the tax that you will then be taxed on, it's minus the 7%, meaning you don't pay tax on the 7%. If you did, you would be paying tax on 5,000, but now you are not paying tax on 5,000, you are paying tax on 4,000, because they take it that this 7% you will be taxed, they call it a deferred tax. You will only be taxed when you receive it, and that's when now the 50,000 comes in. So it's not a double taxation at all. You didn't pay tax on the contribution.
Where it comes in now is the additional retirement investment that I do. like what you're saying, GIPF right now, we don't pay tax on GIPF. We pay money on, we pay tax on money less GIPF. I understand that part. I think it's clear. But now I'm talking about this additional investment. This is money that has been taxed, and from that money, I take an amount, say 500, to invest for additional retirement. And then the receiver wants to go and tax me again on that money that I've already paid tax on. That's where I come in. I'm like, there's something not balancing.
No, remember, with all your retirement annuities, you don't pay tax on.
No, the income itself. Before I take the money, say to Alan Gray, this is money that has already been taxed by the receiver of revenue. I've already paid tax on that money. So by the time I took this 500 to Alan Gray, I paid tax before I took it there.
Okay, no, I do get you, but remember, when you do your tax return every year, on that return they will indicate, okay, your sources of income. Let's say, for example, it's coming from your employer, and 100,000 was deducted as tax. In addition, they will then say, if you are paying for study policies, if you have study policies, or you have retirement annuities, Sanlam or Old Mutual will then give you the tax certificate to say, for this year, you have paid 5,000 or 7,000 for a retirement annuity. Then the receiver of revenue will then give you that, it's called the rebate. They will refund you because you are not supposed to pay tax on that amount. You don't pay tax on any contributions to a retirement annuity or to study policies, unless if you are paying so much that it's more than the allowable amount that the receiver gives. But you don't pay tax on the retirement annuities and on the study policies. Then the receiver will give you a tax refund on an annual basis. Any other question before we move on? Are we all clear? Oh, sorry. Yes, ma'am.
When you start working to plan your life, like me, I was planning in the 40s, I would buy a F and I would take it in retirement and in the flats. But all of a sudden, I hear that I would just get, if you retire, maybe by 55, 1/3 of your pension, which is very unfair. I was thinking that I would get all my money and stop my obligations with GIPF and do my own things. So I don't know, we've just heard that everything has changed the GIPF without our consent. But I think GIPF was supposed to first consult with the employees, government employees, before they do that thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you referring to the 35-75 preservation? Huh?
She's talking. Okay. Okay, let me help you to understand this.
Yeah, please.
Okay, maybe you may like in touch on it. Okay, when she was talking about Pension Fund Act, okay, she was basically referring to your question. GIPF is a member or reports to the Pension Fund Act. And then this Pension Fund Act is not only meant for GIPF, it's meant for all the pension funds in the country. And then GIPF is a pension fund. And then the policy or the law or the act that regulates pension fund says on retirement, a member can only get a 1/3, and then the 2/3 will be paid on monthly basis. But there's not a GIPF issue only, it's a pension fund industry issue.
So it concerns the private companies and their pension funds
Yes,
also.
even private funds that are regulated under the Pension Fund Act, it's the same. Okay, let me put it this way. We have two types of funds in the country. We have what we call a provident fund, and then we have a pension fund. A provident fund, there are only few in this country. I can remember like Nampower has a provident fund. I think Nafusa has a provident fund, but the rest of the pension or the funds are pension funds. Provident funds, those are the only funds that once you go on retirement, you get out all your pension out. But if you belong to a pension fund, regardless you belong to a private fund, pension fund, you can only get a 1/3, and then a 2/3 is paid. But the difference again between now the GIPF and the private fund is that with GIPF, your 2/3 is lifelong, doesn't get finished. Maybe you got the call from Ms. Bako. With the GIPF, the 2/3 that you leave with the fund is lifelong. But with the private funds, your 2/3 is not lifelong. Understand? That's the difference. You should seriously thank this fund. It looks after you. Remember when Etienne was explaining that it might be that you retire at the age of 60, and then you only maybe, if you know that you're going to die after 5 years or 7 years, you can eat all your money. But with GIPF, it's not like that, because the money you're supposed to get it lifelong, regardless of how much have you contributed to the fund. I will get that. Okay, yeah, that's how it works. It's not a GIPF thing, it's an industry issue.
Yeah. I just also, good afternoon. I just also wanted to come in and just simplify maybe these things when we say lifelong. Just by taking an example. One of the pensioners we have on our books, this year they would be turning 106. Now mind you, this person retired at 60 already. So by now they would have been receiving a pension for over 40 years. What happens in the other arena, which is not the GIPF space, good, you get your 1/3, but then what happens to your 2/3 is you sit and you negotiate with your pension provider as to the package, you package yourself, how you will get per month. And when it runs out, it runs out. But with the GIPF, our motto is defined benefit. And I think we always talk about our founding fathers and mothers, those who came up with this concept, knew very much that our government is the biggest employer in Namibia by far. And the way our pension benefits or the mode of the fund is really is almost to mimic our own lives. It's not a straight line. It's like this. You have the one GIPF member who's married, no kids, and there they are. The other is married, 2 wives, we have even some with 6 wives. And it's a reality. I'm just coming now from a meeting where we're looking at the benefits. And some people have 6, because customarily we do allow that, as it was said earlier. So you have all these up and downs. But what we are trying to do is, or what the Act really made a provision for, is to say, once you retire, you should generally not be really worse off than you are when you are in employment. And that's why you should be having a benefit that is a little bit guaranteed beyond that age that you have worked for. And for the most part, and we take this a lot from our male members, by the time they are deceased and they have remarried, they don't necessarily marry younger men. It will be a young person they are married to. And that person, again, their annuity per month is guaranteed until the day she dies, irrespective of whether she remarries. We have people on our books who are collecting more than 3 GIPF benefits. So, and we just say they married wisely. Thank you.
Colleagues, for clarifying that. Can we move on? Are we all clear? Okay. So when we talk about the 3575, it's not a GIPF issue, it's a pension industry issue, which is NAMFISA. I think there was a miscommunication pertaining, not GIPF wants to change things, it's not GIPF. Even our own fund, as employees of the fund, we are affected by that. But at this stage, that is just a proposal. It has been talked for years, but it is still in a proposal form. But that it will only affect if you go, if you are retiring. Obviously, you will get your whole 1/3 and your 2/3. Death benefits. As a member of the fund, what benefits are payable? You are on a way to bumped by a taxi. For retirement and then death after retirement. While you are in service, that death benefit consists of two benefits. It's a tax-free lump sum of 2 times your annual salary. 2 times annual salary, meaning if your annual salary is 200,000, that will be 400,000. It's tax-free. In addition to that, there is a children and spousal pension, which is paid in terms of the rules of the fund. And the lump sum is distributed by trustees, which to the dependents and beneficiaries. As Mr. Chiramba was saying, on a monthly basis, our trustees would sit, he's actually coming from that meeting, they would sit and look at how many members have passed on, and then they will then distribute those benefits. Because each claim is decided on an individual basis. They will look at, this is member X, he was married,